Hello, everyone, and welcome to this weekend's edition of Protect Your Portfolio. My name, of course, is Stephen Whiteside, and before we get started, just a little warning that the host of this video is heavily medicated at this time. I'm not allowed to drive or operate heavy machinery. Luckily, I don't have a driver's license, so that isn't an issue. Now, here we are. We finished week 19 of 2025. The tariff wars are still in play. Now, on Sunday night, the market is reacting to some news from the White House. They've got something going on with China. China hasn't responded yet, so this might all fade away by the morning. But so far, it looks like the market is set up to do some buying on Monday morning. Now, we watched the market decline. It's been a two-phase decline. The first decline was the Project 2025 reactions, what Elon Musk was doing. And then we had the tariff reaction, which took us down in early April. Since that time, we've had a reaction move to the upside, and we're heading back up towards the March highs. For the SPY, that's 576.41. We're getting pretty close to that at this time. On Friday, we closed at 564.34, so we could actually hit that on Monday. Now, we've traded up into the moving average congestion area, and tomorrow's a full moon, so let's see if the full moon has any reaction, gives the market any reaction up at that level. We're in the flypaper channel, so most of the major indices look like this at this time. Of course, the TSX did not fall as much and has already broken through and is heading up towards the highs that we saw earlier in the year. Now, for things to break down on Monday, we need the SPY to close below $552.89. We're still stuck at the 562.50 level. Now, we are looking at daily charts right now. We are still stuck at the 562.50 level. We're trying to break out to the next target, which is 578.13. And the high from back in March was 576.41. So below the 578.13 level. And then the next target to the upside, if we can keep going, is 593.75, which is not only a daily, but it's also a weekly target. Of course, on the weekly chart, you can see the last 2 weeks, we've been stuck here at the 562.50 level and the previous highs. So now we're trying to break out above those. And if we can do that on the weekly chart, the next target is 593.75. So if we want to keep going from here, we're certainly on buy signals on the daily charts. We have not flipped over to buy signals on the weekly charts for the major indices at this time. Now, we still assume that this uptrend that we're currently seeing is going to come to an end very soon, and then we're going to roll over and continue to move to the downside. And of course, right now, the SPY did trade up to the upper channel line over the past 5 trading days, but did not close above it. That is also true for most of the other major U.S. indices. You can see here that we topped on a bearish reversal week. We bottomed on a bullish reversal week. And since we've been moving up over the past 5 weeks, the pros still have not taken control. So, there's still a bit of weakness here. There's certainly a lot of short covering that has moved the market higher, but we're looking for new money to come into the market for it to continue to move up from here. Now, of course, on the weekly chart, our next major target, if we can break away from the 562.50 level, again, we're still stuck at that level. You can see that we traded through it. We got as low as 556.04 for the week. So we're still stuck to the 562.50 level. If we can break away from it, then 593.75 is our next target to the upside on the weekly charts. Now, if we were to break down below the low that we saw a few weeks ago, then 468.75 would be our next target. Of course, the first sign that anything is breaking down is a close below the previous week's low. That would be the first sign that something new is happening, and so far, that has not happened. And of course, if we start breaking down below the flypaper channel, now you can see we traded below it. Well, we're still stuck to it. So that's why it's called the flypaper channel, is markets, stocks get stuck to it. What we're looking for is a clear break below it. We have a break to the upside right now, which is still, pretty impressive. But you can see that there's a lot of resistance up here above the 580 level. And so if we can get away from 562.50, up to the 593 level, you're walking into a wall of resistance. Now, on a short-term basis, I want to look at the percentage of S&P 500 stocks currently above their 20-day moving average. And as you can see, the dark line here, that represents the percentage of stocks above their 20-day moving average. And when you get up over 80%, that's when you consider the market to be overbought and you look to buy puts and look to sell stocks. Of course, the opposite is true that when you start trading below the 20% level, that's when you look to buy call options and start to look for buying opportunities. So here we are on this, what is relatively short-term indicator. We are currently very overbought at the moment, and wouldn't be surprised if the market headed lower. Obviously, the market's going to respond to any trade news because that's what the world is focused on at the moment. And if it's true that the U.S. has struck a deal with China, that could certainly uh, get the markets to continue to move higher from here. Now, looking at the world from an investor's point of view, here's the weekly chart of gold. And so the commodities did well this week, but gold, of course, is the fear trade, and the world is still relatively scared. That's why you've got gold up at all-time highs. Gold has never been this high in history, and it was up over $100 on the week. Now, we also had crude oil up, and crude oil, of course, is not a fair trade, but if the economy is going to slow down, that's when you get crude oil selling off, or if there's a flood of inventory of crude oil around the world, you get lower prices. So here we are. We were up nearly 5% on the week, holding the 56.25 level. You can see that is an area of support. If we break down below that, that would take us down to $50. Now, looking at the TSX, it's on a second week of a buy signal, very close to the all-time high. This is the iShares for the TSX 60. Our next target is 39.06, and then above that would be $40.63. Now, the tariff wars are certainly having a great effect on some commodity prices, and people have talked about how much lumber has come down over the past month or so. But, if you look at the price of lumber from back in 2024, back here in March of 2024, we declined right into July. So, yeah, we are coming into the building season, the home building season, and also a lot of people do home renovations during the summer. So we saw, bigger declines last year than we are seeing this year. So I'd certainly be a buyer of lumber using the daily charts if it generated a buy signal, but I don't think that this decline tells us anything that we need to be overly concerned about. Now, some of the other commodities aren't doing well at the moment. Cotton prices have been declining for quite a while, so nothing to do with tariffs. You can see that corn has dropped recently, but last summer, in 2024, it was down lower. There are soybeans at the moment. Last year, they were about the same price. And then we've got wheat. Yes, wheat is making lower lows here, but, not by much. So a lot of talk about the tariffs hurting the commodity world. That's not really the case, is it now? Now, one area of the market that's making new highs right now is live cattle. That has more to do with a problem in Mexico. They have some disease that has dramatically reduced the number of cattle that are being shipped into the U.S. at this time. So that's what's put upward pressure on the price of cattle. It has nothing to do with tariffs at the moment. Now, as I mentioned, most of the U.S. market looks like this, where we're trading in the weekly channel. There is semiconductors running right up to the upper channel line, but not enough to give us a buy signal. We did get a lot of buy signals this week. One of the ARC Innovations ETFs gave us a buy signal. The IPO ETF gave us a buy signal. We've got financials, we've got telecom, clean energy. The equal weighted NASDAQ 100 generated a buy signal. There's solar energy, cloud computing, the Spider Financial ETF. So we did get a lot of buy signals across the board, just not the major indices at this time. And if we get fall through to the upside this week, that will certainly change next Friday. Now, if you can stick with me for another minute, we'll just finish off the presentation here with gold stocks in the U.S. up a tick under 7%. Canadians gold stocks were up a little over 7.5% on the week. Then we've got the VIX. Now, the daily VIX has been on a sell signal for quite a while now. Things would change on Monday if we closed above 2610. Now, you can see here we went a while where we only had 3 bearish indicators, and then we had 4, and we've had 4 for 2 weeks now. If we look at the daily flypaper channel chart, you can see we're right down at the bottom of the flypaper channel. Last time we got down here at that level, we stayed down for a few days before moving higher. Now, when we look at the weekly right side chart, we are technically back on a sell signal as of Friday's close, which is bullish for stocks. It's not really a very bearish indication so far. So far, we've only got two negative dots down here. And we're certainly looking for four. That would be more inspirational, telling us that options traders in Chicago are more bearish on the market. So right now, they're barely bearish on a long-term basis. They're certainly bearish on a short-term basis. So we're waiting for this to continue to move. If the market wants to continue to move higher, then we'll continue to be long on a short-term basis. And then next weekend, if the market continues to move up, we'll get daily buy signals, on the major U.S. indices. Right now, the Canadian indices are on buy signals and continuing to move higher. That has a lot to do with gold prices. And this week, it had something to do with energy prices. Okay, folks, that's all for this weekend's presentation. Again, stock index futures are trading higher on Sunday night. If China reacts and says something to disqualify what the White House is talking about, then those futures prices could certainly reverse to the downside. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Next time you'll hear my voice is hopefully on Monday morning, and we'll go through the most actively traded stocks from Friday's trading action.